I want to give you guys a quick guide to reading for the articles for this class. All of the articles that we look at, or most of them, will follow the IMRAD format, which stands for Introduction, Method, Results, and Discussion. And this is a pretty structured format. And what it does is it gives you some flexibility in reading because always certain kinds of information will always appear in specific sections. And the IMRAD format is often described as an hourglass. It moves from broad in the introduction, which asks questions about what do we want to know? What's the background of this topic? What's the research question? Then it moves to narrowly discussing the details of how the study was conducted and the results of what it found in all of their glory and detail. And then it broadens out to say what this study means, what is next, what are some implications. Always at the beginning of the discussion section, articles almost always begin by summarizing the main findings of the study. So if you're ever lost or confused, jump to the discussion section. And that should help you really kind of get your bearings. By contrast, the methods section, most people skip over. And I'll tell you in my reading notes if I think you should pay attention to particular parts of the methods section. And usually I will highlight them in the article for you as well. In terms of the results, often we pay attention to the tables and figures, and then use the text to help us understand those a little bit better. Now, IMRAD reports also have an abstract, except for the first article that we're going to read today, which is an older one and isn't quite following this convention. And the abstract should be a report in miniature. It should have all of these sections. So always read the abstract first. And if you don't have time to do the whole reading, at least open it up and read that short abstract. So in terms of reading guidelines, always read the abstract. I'm going to be asking you to read the introductions and anything that I highlighted, sections that I've highlighted on these. Pay attention to those. Those are background information that I think you'll find really interesting. You can pretty much skip over the methods. You go back to the methods if you have questions. In the results, pay attention to key figures and graphs, see if you can understand them, and I'll often point out what tables or figures to look at. If numbers concern you, what you're really looking for are what are the big numbers and what are the small numbers in there. And then read the discussion section, especially the first few paragraphs that summarize the studies in more depth. And if there are multiple studies, you might jump to a general discussion section at the end, which should begin by summarizing all of those studies together and what they mean and why they're important. So for our first reading, which is old, it was written in 1983, but reports on data from 1975. What I would like you to read the introduction for is to really get a context of what were people talking about already at this time period. So it's probably not a surprise if they're talking about some sexual harassment in the 1970s, early 80s. Look at what else sort of hits that bar as a big thing to pay attention to in this space. Pay attention, as my notes on Canvas indicate, pay attention to the section on interruptions, particularly on how interruption is defined. We're going to be working with interruptions for the first day and a half, so it's important to understand different things that we might mean by that. The design and methods section, I recommend just skipping over and jumping to findings and results are the same thing here. That indicates the same thing. And look at this table. See if you can figure out what this table is showing then go through and skim through and read, especially where it starts talking about what the table is showing, as Table 1 reveals. See if they are noticing, drawing the same conclusions. You will note that this is a very small number. We'll talk about small numbers. And then I think the third reading on the syllabus is a meta-analysis, which takes all of these small studies and groups them together. We'll be talking on Monday about how to read that meta-analysis in class. I just want you to be reading the introduction and some of the background stuff on it. This section on why do men interrupt, we can think of as part of a discussion section. This article is a little bit non-standard in format, which I attribute to it being kind of older. This section provides some interesting context, some other research that was going on at the time, and some more data here that helps further emphasize and call attention to their findings. And then in the discussion here. So hopefully this video will help you read more efficiently. I don't want you should not feel like you need to understand every detail. You should get the gist. It should spark some ideas, some thoughts, some questions for you. If the readings are doing that, you understand them. I will talk to you guys on Monday.